Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Friday. This is Seattle Now. This week, King County shrunk for the first time since the 70s. There's a new way for you to report those annoying robocalls, and pickleball is the state's first official sport. We're breaking it down with Seattle comedian Monica Nevi and publisher of the South Seattle Emerald and columnist with the Seattle Times, Marcus Green. But first, let's get you caught up. Mayor Harrell is moving forward with his police chief hire. Harrell announced yesterday he's posting the job and bringing in a search firm to find the best possible candidates from all over the country. The city charter requires a competitive search process. As for interim chief Adrian Diaz, who's been doing the job for a year and a half, the mayor says he likes what he's seeing so far and that he should apply. Looks like the Amazon union vote in Bessemer, Alabama is going to be a squeaker no matter which way it lands. As of yesterday, workers there are rejecting the union by a little more than 100 votes, 993 to 875. Hundreds of ballots are being challenged, so it's really too soon to tell. Meanwhile, Business Insider reports the vote at an Amazon warehouse in Staten Island is close too, but tipping in favor of a union. And former Seahawk Bobby Wagner will be back at Lumen Field next season after all. He'll just be playing for their division rival. The All-Pro linebacker signed a deal with the LA Rams yesterday. The Seahawks cut him earlier this month to save money. He'll make $50 million over a 5-year contract with the Rams. Well, if it isn't our old friend Friday. Hope your weekend is starting soon. Marcus Green is here. He's publisher of the South Seattle Emerald and columnist with the Seattle Times. So is Seattle comedian Monica Nevi. Really good to have you both. Busy week for me. How's your week been, Monica?
Oh, it's just as busy, I assume. Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy week. So I'm happy to be to Friday and be here with you.
Yeah, it's a certain energy in the air right now. Marcus, how was your week?
It has been going. I thank you for reminding me what day it is, because it has been very, very hectic. So,
Kinetic week. Well, honestly, this week marked a sad anniversary for our region, the 80th anniversary of the forced incarceration of Japanese Americans living on Bainbridge Island, when 227 people of Japanese descent were forced to leave their homes and their lives behind. Now, we talked about this on Seattle Now, but I really appreciated Naomi Ishisaka's writing in the Seattle Times, looking back on the paper's coverage. If you didn't read it, the treatment of the incarceration was superficial given the magnitude of what was happening to people's lives there. There were racial slurs in the copy and in headlines. Seattle Times publisher Frank Blethen called the decision a low point in the paper's history to cover the incarceration this way. But it really got me thinking about the value of an apology and maybe how the hard part about an apology is actually what happens after you make the apology and not cause harm. But I am curious what you two think.
I appreciated this article for, saying, hey, we messed up. This wasn't, these aren't, we want to take responsibility for it, acknowledge it. We're not pretending that it didn't happen. This is what we should have done, but then it does also make me think about what I'm consuming now and what I'm going to look back on and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is how they were talking about this, or this is, not that I blindly just go, oh yeah, okay, well, I hate those people too, or whatever. But I am like just reevaluating, I guess, the way I'm consuming things and what it is doing to my biases, I think.
yeah, I mean, I thought it was great for the Seattle Times to do it. I mean, I know they're sort of following in the heels of some other papers, most notably the Kansas City Star, who apologized for their treatment of the Black community, I want to say, a couple of years back. I mean, ultimately, though, right? I mean, I think the best apology is change behavior. And so how are you going to approach stories in the future? How are you going to be more inclusive and affirming of somebody's humanity, in the future? And so I think that's the thing that I'm more curious about watching out for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Saying the thing and doing the thing, Marcus, are two different things. And these kinds of civil rights violations are still very present in our society. Racism against Asian people, mass incarceration, still very present in our society. And what is the role of the media beyond honest brokers of information, created by humans with biases? It's
right.
constant
And I think,
examination.
yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I'm not somebody who thinks that you can necessarily be truly objective and unbiased in your coverage. I think what you can be is fair and accurate, and ask yourself, why am I telling the story? How am I talking about these people, and whose voice am I prioritizing? And ultimately, I think whether it's the Seattle Times or any other organization, the wonderful KUOW who's hosting this wonderful podcast today, I think those are questions that we can all ask about ourselves in the media.
Yeah. And more than once, constantly, actually, is the way to do it. I wonder, what coverage is happening right now that we'll look back on, that we'll cringe at, feel ashamed of. I'm thinking about pre-elected Trump, honestly. When I think about the way the media covered the run-up to the Trump election and his campaign, I think that would be a very fair topic for dissection.
Yeah, I think some of the both sidesism that we kind of have these days, where in some ways that's a prerequisite to give certain folks who have extremely dangerous and horrible viewpoints,
Right.
you to give them, an air. And I always say, right, I mean, freedom of speech isn't, freedom of megaphone. So I think, we'll be able to look back and be like, wow, this is somebody that we gave this amount of time and attention and relevance to.
It's a path. Everybody's on it, and being honest and open to, examining things is the most important part here.
Yes, we are all works in progress, to quote a actor who recently got into some trouble. So yes.
Oh my goodness, Marcus. Right. And, I actually am thinking back to an earlier conversation that you and I had about who gets forgiveness, who gets to move forward. And, and I think this is a place where maybe when the Seattle Times apologizes and starts its A1 thing as a continual examination of its work through the years, we can start to look at the Seattle Times maybe through a critical lens of an organization that's trying.
And it is a process, right? I mean, forgiveness and, trying to provide some sort of remuneration is a process, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And so, I'm certainly, I mean, I get a paycheck from the Times, so I'm my bias there, but I am certainly willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and see how that process carries out.
I think that's great. I think, it makes me go, as a person and as a comedian, someone who's putting things out that people can see. And, it does make you go back to, I've been doing stand-up for 11 years. It was different when I first started, the things I was talking about then, mostly because my life is different. But there's some jokes that I used to do that I'm like, I would never do that now. And to have that on a personal level is helpful, I think, for me, but also to see a bigger group of people doing that is cool. And I think maybe more people should consider that. And it's not like I'm not apologizing for jokes that I did. I just know now that I wouldn't do them. It's not, you grow and you acknowledge that it is a process and you're continuing to learn. And so if you need to apologize, but at least examine yourself from before, I guess.
So Monica, I got to ask, so does that mean you've taken Jada Pinkett Smith jokes out of your set?
I think we all have, for fear of repercussion. But no, I wish I had Jada Pinkett jokes. I do think everyone maybe is a little more nervous that the difference between a bad joke and, isn't just not getting a laugh anymore. Like, are people going to feel like they need to take things into their own hands? I don't know, but I feel fine about it. I'm not very mean, though, on stage. So maybe that's why I feel comfortable.
Funny. In other news this week, you might be able to get some justice for your phone. The state attorney general's office has a new way for you to report those annoying robocalls. It's a pretty detailed form, actually, but who picks up a call from a number they don't recognize? Seriously, I feel like I've been practicing defensive phone tactics for like 15 years now. Do you pick up the phone if you don't know the number?
Depends on how lonely I feel that day. No, I really don't, actually. I don't
Nobody does.
I'm a millennial too. So even talking on the phone at all is really kind of uncomfortable for me. So.
Yeah. And I'll say as a working class journalist, you fear death and bills. And so yeah, I am always scared of the bill collectors. So no, I do not at all pick up a phone. And especially if somebody does not leave a message, just like, oh, okay, then this was not important.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an effort out of the AG's office. Bob Ferguson filed a lawsuit against an Oregon company for illegally calling people in Washington 54,000 times. But seriously, the calls were about stopping robocalls. It was an actual call about stopping robocalls. I can't decide if that's like some sadist move or a baller move. I'm not sure.
Kind of meta too, I gotta say.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah. Political calls are okay, though. I see you, Pramila Jayapal. She is on my phone all the time. Pramila Jayapal's comm person has like the corner on some like T-Mobile line because I get a message from Pramila Jayapal like once a month. Hello.
I thought I was special, Trish. It's everybody. My goodness. Okay. My ego shot. Okay.
Would either of you fill out the form, though, or would you just ignore the call?
Yeah, if they gamify the form or something, maybe I would take time.
You get a prize. I don't know. Well, those robocallers have 20,000 fewer people to call in King County. Hard to believe, but according to the Seattle Times FYI guy, Gene Balk, for the first time since the Boeing bust of the 70s, King County shrunk. Not by much, though. 20,000 people is actually just a tiny sliver of the 2-point-some million we have here. But given how much growth we've experienced, fairly notable. Fairly notable. What do you think about this?
I mean, it felt like it was getting smaller. Does that make sense? Maybe because I live in Tacoma and I feel like everybody keeps coming down here. So
Well, tell me about that because, yeah, Tacoma's growing.
Man, I'm from Renton originally. And when I was growing up, Tacoma was not the place to be. It was gross and don't go down there and whatever. And it smells or whatever. And then they were lying, I think. I've been trying to keep it a secret, but you guys keep coming in. It's changed a lot. And there's really it's really pretty. And I think people don't recognize it as that because it was always known as like the aroma of Tacoma or whatever. And I think with this kind of more people can work from home situation that some people from King County did come down to Pierce. So
yeah, maybe this is just an affordability story because the other thing that Gene Balk was reporting that Seattle's other milestone was one of affluence in 2020, with the majority of households earning at least $100,000 a year, which, okay, now it starts to make sense why people left.
Yeah, there are not enough people leaving, Trish. I was just in Milwaukee last week, and I'm passing by like 3-story manors and the Wayne estate and everything, and they're going for like $275,000. I'm like, I can literally get 5 homes in Milwaukee for the cost of the shoebox that I live in Seattle, right? I mean, so yeah.
Yes, that's a fun. I'm back on the road again, and so that's a fun thing. I do, get the real estate apps up to compare what a home here would be like versus when I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's devastating, really, but
it's so depressing. It's so depressing. A life you won't own. All right, one last thing before we go. Probably going to get a lot more crowded at your neighborhood pickleball court. The game has been named the state's first official sport. The name, of course, a lighthearted reference, apparently, to its inventor's Cocker Spaniel Pickles. Oh. But make no mistake, this is a serious game. It's a combination of tennis, ping pong, and badminton. Have either of you even played this game, pickleball?
I have.
I have not, no. And I gotta say, and no offense to anyone, but I had a lot of cognitive dissonance when I heard about this because I was like, did they have a contest for the whitest sport possible for to name? And then I found out that the sponsor, John Lovick, is a black man. So I'm dealing with a lot right now. Okay.
We played in high school. Like we learned it in our PE class in high school.
You did? And
I didn't know what it was before then, but I didn't enjoy it enough to be like, I'm an avid pickleballer now. So, it's like exactly those things where you're like, did someone just watch ping pong and tennis and badminton and go, well, what if we just put them on? Like, it is what it is. And I like pickles, so I thought those would be involved in some way, and they're not. So I've always wondered why it was called that. So I'm glad that you had that little thing about the dog, because I was like, there's nothing to do with pickles at all. Maybe if the court is green, but that's still in tennis too. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I find it funny that the zone you're not allowed to hit the ball into is called the kitchen. There's a box, that you can't. Yeah. It has to bounce before you hit it. And if it goes into this box, this zone called the kitchen, it's out. So
stay out of the kitchen.
I picked up pickleball when my teenager was just a little guy, and I thought it was going to be fun, like it was just a goofy thing, but I figured out pretty quickly that depending on which pickleball court you go to, messing around is not embraced.
Serious out there.
Yeah, it gets a little serious at some of the pickleball courts. You want to stick to the midday with the youngsters if you can, because the morning and the early evening gets pretty intense around there.
It seems like it was popular for a while, and maybe it's like coming back. I had one of my teachers in high school threw her back out playing pickleball. At least that's what she told us. And I was like, are you doing that on the weekend? Like, that's like a thing. And she's like, yeah, there's big tournaments and stuff. I was like, okay.
It's a national sport, man.
Dangerous, apparently, Sophie.
We're leaving it there. Thanks to our guest, Marcus Green. He's publisher of the South Seattle Emerald, and Monica Nevi, local comedian. Thanks so much to you two.
Thanks for having me.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Hey, Seattle Now listeners, it's almost the weekend. Before we get there, a reminder. It's KUOW's spring membership drive, and we need you to show your support. Any amount you can give will help us make this show. $2 a month, $5 a month, a one-time lump sum. Whatever you can give is great. All you need to know is that every dollar of your support makes this show and everything you hear and read on KUOW possible. We'll put a link in the show notes to donate. If you can pitch in, mention Seattle Now. I promise I'll read your name. Thanks for listening. Caroline Chamberlain Gomez produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. Catch you Monday. Have a great weekend.